Hello, in today's video we will be looking at some stories from r/am I the asshole. Let's pass some judgments. Am I the asshole for letting go of an employee because she was pregnant? I'm the owner of a small business working with consumer chemicals, if that isn't vague enough. Up until 2 months ago, I was the only employee because I couldn't really afford to hire up until recently. After working things out, I had enough to hire 2 part-time employees. The only help I really needed as I was still the only full-time employee. So I interviewed and got a dozen or so applicants. I hired 2 people, a man, late 30s, and a younger woman, mid 20s. Everything was peachy. We all gelled together real well. That is until my employee announced she was 5 weeks pregnant. As bad as it sounds, I had to let her go. If she stayed with us much longer, she'd be out of the 3MO probationary period, where I could let her go without reason. After this time, she's entitled to maternity benefits, which in my area, come out of the business. Correct me if I'm wrong, in assuming government subsidizes it elsewhere. Not only that, but after the probationary period, I have to make reasonable adjustments to my building to make it accessible/comfortable for a pregnant woman. My company deals in chemicals, oftentimes hazardous chemicals. Things a pregnant woman shouldn't even be near, even with protective clothing. The only way I could adjust her job to meet those criteria is something like doing deliveries/pickups, invoicing, general clerical work, etc., which is not something I need as I'm capable of doing it myself on off days. I'll let her go because it's a headache just to manage this. I lose hands in my work, I become more liable, etc. Basically her job becomes redundant if I need to make those changes. The jobs I filled were very specific and anything outside of that job is unnecessary salary given out. Was I the asshole here? This is still fairly fresh. If it changes anything, I did write very good reference for her and even contacted some other people in my industry who might need more clerical work. I'm a very small player in my industry when some of my competitors could find a use for her when I could not. Apologies for my English if it's not correct. Edit. I'm not in the US. Over here, there are protections for employees after 3 months, but before this, you really can let them go for any reasons. For no reason if you want, even. You can't discriminate, but herein is reason for Am I the Asshole thread. Pregnant women get paid leave for a period proportional to how long they've worked. It doesn't matter how long they've been working, it's always proportional to how long, although I think there's a limit. With me, my accountant says she would have received 3 months paid leave after working the year or so with me. I was mostly worried about how her job would change. Lots of chemicals, using ladders, standing, etc., which if she requested alterations to make it easier for her, I really couldn't come up with an alternate job for her. I needed the 2 people help, and if one is not able to work to the fullest extent, I'd need to hire a 3rd, just to take over her duties. The 3 months maternity is a big deal, yes, but not an immediate issue. I'm a small company, either a salary being paid out for a job not being done, or the need to hire a 3rd to pick up the slack I just cannot afford. She is a good employee, which is why I referred her to some of my competitors who have more flexibility. Am I the asshole for telling my kids to stop complaining about their childhoods on FB? I've seen a lot of narc mom validation posts on here, and I hope this isn't one. I had my twins when I was 17. I dropped out of school and moved in with a friend who was helping me support them, no rent. I got a job, earned my JED, and over the next few years I started college and got another job to pay for it. For most of their early childhood, I worked 2 or 3 jobs and took classes at a community college. Some bad events took place at my friend's house, and I was forced to move into an apartment. Good news? A classmate with a boy my girl's age was looking for a place, so we became roommates and kinda co-parents. Worked great, we lived together until I was almost out of uni. Still working 2 jobs. I usually had night and early morning shifts, and she had day shifts. Someone was always with the kids, and when she started working more we got a babysitter. At this point we were still very poor. We wore bras and underwear with holes in them because we didn't have money for new ones. She got engaged, moved in with the guy, and I was forced to find a cheaper apartment I could make on my own. I graduated, got work as a bookkeeper in a legal office, and started earning enough to confidently stay afloat and afford a reliable babysitter. We stayed in the apartment until my kids had moved out, and I saved enough to move to a house in a small town. Years later. Now, my girls are posting mean-spirited comments on FB and complimenting each other. One will post something about "I didn't know how poor I was until I realized how big a yard can be," and the other one will say "I always knew." Other kids with competent mothers had huge backyards, and we had an apartment. Complaining about yards being raised by babysitters, always moving. I got sick of it. I replied on one of their posts saying they always had a safe home with food and at least one adult around to protect them, which is more than other children, and they shouldn't be whining like this when they were competently cared for. My daughter deleted it, and some friends have pointed out that growing up poor still isn't easy, and they were likely bullied and felt some uncertainty for the future. I've been told a good mother would let them vent now so they can come to terms with their past. While I see the reason, I also feel calling me incompetent as a mother is mean and uncalled for. Edit. I should have put this in long before now, but the bad events at my friend's place had nothing to do with my kids. My friend's parents had serious health and financial problems and could no longer house me for free. The rent they needed to supplement lost income was too high, so I had to leave so they could rent to someone else. Also, thanks to everyone who left advice. I was expecting a lot of AITA, but I was surprised by the direction they are taking. It's opening my eyes to this, and I know I have to actually talk to my children about this. I'll try and handle it better than I have so far. Am I the asshole for applying at all? Am I the asshole for anonymously posting a negative review of my friend's film and never owning up to it? My friend Lowy, 35 meters, and I, 31 meters, have wanted to be filmmakers since we were teenagers. So after years of sweat and tears, he tries to get a production company to pick up his main project. No luck. I know why it's just not very good, and that's after years of constructive feedback. I admit I was never super hard on him, since even a little bit of criticism sent him hurling down a path of self-hate. Eventually, he releases the project independently. He has a big release party and his friends and family post glowing reviews of it online. He waits for sales, recognition. Nothing. He's devastated, but since everyone's still encouraging him, he throws himself into another project, which isn't much better. I encourage him half-heartedly. B/C I feel he could be using that energy to find something he's actually good at. But I'm afraid to be the one to tell him the hard truth. So I write an anonymous review instead. I'm not brutal, but I tell the truth. His project is unoriginal, not very well written, and often made me tune out as a viewer. Then I soften the blow by saying that I was still interested enough to watch another project by the filmmaker should he release another. Lowy contacts me after the review is posted in incoherent tears. I try to point out the positive aspects of the review. He wasn't comforted at all. He also started wondering if someone he knew wrote it and started listening possible enemies, ex-girlfriends, etc. He never suspected me at all, not once. I felt so dirty. But I still didn't tell him I wrote it. I figured it's a single review. It'll blow over. And then, out of guilt, I wrote a glowing review with my name on it, so he wouldn't suspect that me and harsh critic were the same person. Years have passed. We are still close. We've been in each other's weddings, for crying out loud. And he still brings up the review. He describes the review as one of the most traumatizing things that ever happened to him. He's also mostly convinced it was written by one of his exes, a theory I discouraged, but that he clings to. Also, he changes what the review said, remembering it to be way worse than it was. I can't correct him very strongly without fear of inciting suspicion. He's since tried other projects, all unsuccessful, and I still support him, while gently encouraging other passions, which he dismisses. The other wrench in this whole muck, I've actually made it as a filmmaker. To the point where my name is getting slow but steady recognition. He's been nothing but supportive and happy for me, but I know he's trying not to be jealous, and I don't blame him. And he still brings up the review. If Lowy knew I wrote it, it would almost certainly end our friendship. The disparity in our levels of success are bad enough, But if he found out that I'm behind the most traumatizing feedback he's ever gotten, and that I semi-actively deceived him about it for years, we'd be done. Am I the asshole for not telling him? Thank you for watching. Please like, comment what subreddit you will like to see stories from, and please subscribe.